Welcome to Technically You, the podcast where we explore the technologies that are literally reshaping what it means to be human.
And if you are someone that really gets excited talking about science and technology, this is the podcast to watch.
Well, today we're diving into something that sounds like pure science fiction, but is happening right now in operating rooms around the world. Brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs.
The technology that lets you control things with your mind. No hand-waving required.
Exactly. And I have to say, when I started researching this topic, I went down a rabbit hole that lasted 3 days. We're talking about people who are paralyzed playing video games with their thoughts, typing at speeds that rival able-bodied people, and even,
Designing 3D models in CAD software using nothing but their brain signals. Yeah, we're living in the future.
so let's start with the basics for our listeners. What exactly is a brain-computer interface?
Great question. At its core, a BCI is a direct communication pathway between your brain and an external device. Think of it as a translator. It reads the electrical signals your neurons produce when you think about doing something and converts those signals into commands a computer can understand.
So when I think, move my hand, even if I can't physically move it, the BCI can detect that intention?
Precisely. Your brain is still firing those neurons, sending those signals. The BCI picks them up, decodes them, and can use them to control a cursor, a robotic arm, or even type out words.
Okay, but how does it actually get in there? Because I'm assuming we're not just wearing fancy hats here.
Well, actually, we have both invasive and non-invasive BCIs. The non-invasive ones are kind of like fancy hats. They use technologies like EEG to read brain signals from outside your skull. They're safer, but the signal quality is like trying to hear a whisper in a crowded room.
Not ideal.
Not for precision work, no. That's why the really groundbreaking stuff happening right now involves invasive BCIs, tiny electrodes actually implanted in or on the brain. And before listeners freak out, the technology has gotten incredibly sophisticated. We're talking about electrode arrays thinner than a human hair.
I read about one that's literally 1/5 the thickness of an eyelash.
That's Precision Neuroscience's Layer 7 device. It's essentially a super thin film with over 1,000 microelectrodes. And here's the cool part. It can be placed on the brain surface and removed without damaging tissue.
Without damaging tissue. That's key, right? Because earlier, BCIs had some issues?
Yeah, tissue damage has been the elephant in the room for decades. Rigid electrodes can cause scarring, infections, signal degradation over time. But the new generation of flexible, biocompatible materials is solving those problems. We're seeing implants that have been functioning perfectly for over a year now.
So let's talk about the players in this space. Everyone knows Neuralink because, well, Elon Musk. But there are others, right?
Oh, absolutely. Neuralink gets the headlines, but this is a vibrant field with multiple companies taking different approaches. You've got Neuralink with their high-density electrode arrays and robotic surgical system. They've now implanted devices in 3 people in early 2025.
And those patients are doing what exactly?
One patient, Nolan Arbaugh, has been using his implant for over a year. He can control computers, play games, browse the internet, all with thought. The second patient, known as Alex, is actually doing 3D CAD design work. He's designing things in professional software using just his mind.
That's insane. In the best way.
Right? But here's where it gets interesting. Neuralink isn't alone. Synchron has a completely different approach. Their device is inserted through blood vessels, so no open brain surgery required.
Wait, through blood vessels? Like a stent?
Exactly like a stent. It's called the stent road. A neurosurgeon threads it through blood vessels in the neck up to the brain. Less invasive, but potentially lower resolution than surface electrodes.
Trade-offs everywhere.
Always. Then you've got Precision Neuroscience, the company we mentioned earlier, co-founded by a Neuralink co-founder who left because he wanted to prioritize safety. They've already tested their device in 27 patients across multiple hospitals.
Ooh, interesting. Any drama there?
Let's just say there were different philosophies about how aggressive to be with the technology. Some wanted to move fast and break things.
Literally break things in this case would be bad.
Very bad. So you've got this split where some companies are prioritizing speed, others prioritizing safety, and they're all racing toward FDA approval.
And it's not just American companies anymore, is it?
Not at all. China just completed their first invasive BCI implant in March 2025. A patient with tetraplegia can now play racing games and chess with his mind after just 2 to 3 weeks of training.
Weeks? That seems fast.
The learning curve is getting shorter as the AI algorithms improve. These systems are learning to decode brain signals more efficiently, and patients are learning to control their neural patterns more precisely. It's this beautiful feedback loop of human and artificial intelligence working together.
Okay, so we've talked about the technology and the companies, but let's get to what really matters. Who does this help? And how?
The primary focus right now is on people with paralysis, spinal cord injuries, ALS, locked-in syndrome. We're talking about millions of people worldwide who've lost the ability to move or communicate normally.
And a BC, I can restore that?
It's restoring digital freedom first. These patients can't move their arms, but they can control computers, smartphones, smart home devices. One trial participant said, "The link is a big step on the path of regaining freedom and independence for myself."
That's powerful.
It is, and we're moving toward physical restoration too. There are trials underway to control robotic arms, not just cursors. Imagine being paralyzed but using a robotic arm controlled by your thoughts to feed yourself, to hug someone.
Wow. I I didn't expect this to get emotional. But here we are.
It hits different when you think about the human impact, doesn't it? Beyond paralysis, there are trials for restoring communication to people with speech disorders, helping blind people regain some vision through direct cortical stimulation.
Wait, restoring vision? How does that work?
So Neuralink's BlindSight project, which received FDA breakthrough status, bypasses damaged eyes entirely and stimulates the visual cortex directly. If your visual cortex is intact but your eyes are damaged, you could potentially see again. Low resolution at first, but it's a start.
That's okay. That's actually incredible.
And here's something that doesn't get enough attention. About 25 clinical trials are underway right now. This isn't one company's moonshot anymore. It's a coordinated global effort involving universities, hospitals, and companies.
So this is really happening. Like, not in 10 years, not in 5 years. Now.
The translation era, as researchers call it, we're moving from science experiments to actual medical products.
But it can't all be sunshine and neural electrodes, right? What are the concerns?
Oh, where do I start? Safety is obviously number one. We're putting electronics in people's brains. Long-term biocompatibility, infection risks, device failures, these are all serious concerns.
And we don't have long-term data yet because the technology is so new.
Exactly. The longest any current generation device has been implanted is just over a year. We need 5, 10, 20-year data to really understand the risks.
What about the ethical stuff? Because I imagine once we can read brain signals, privacy becomes a huge issue.
Massive issue. These devices are potentially bidirectional. They don't just read signals, they could write them. That means someone could theoretically access your neural data or even influence your thoughts.
Okay, that's terrifying.
It could be. That's why researchers are calling for neuro rights, legal frameworks to protect mental privacy, cognitive liberty, psychological continuity. Some jurisdictions are already creating laws around this.
What about the whole enhancement angle? Like, right now it's medical. But what happens when healthy people want neural implants to, I don't know, download languages or do math faster?
The enhancement question. Yeah, that's coming. Elon Musk talks openly about human-AI symbiosis, increasing the bandwidth between humans and computers. But we're not there yet. Current devices are focused purely on restoring lost function.
But eventually?
Eventually, it's inevitable. The technology doesn't care whether you're restoring function or enhancing it. Once we crack the code on safe, effective neural interfaces, someone will want to enhance themselves. And then we get into thorny questions about equality, access, who gets to be upgraded.
The digital divide becomes a neural divide.
Precisely. Though I should mention, researchers are very aware of these issues. There's a whole field of neuroethics dedicated to working through these problems before they become crises.
So let's look ahead. What does the next few years look like for BCIs?
2025 is a pivotal year. Neuralink is aiming to implant 20 to 30 more people. Precision neuroscience, Synchron, paradromics, they're all expanding trials. We might see the first FDA approval for a commercial BCI device by 2026 or 2027.
A commercial device. Meaning people could actually buy this?
Well, buy might be the wrong word. It'll be a medical device that doctors prescribe an implant. But yes, we're moving from experimental trials to actual products. The market is projected to grow from about $1.6 billion to over $15 billion by 2045.
That's massive growth.
And it's not just medical applications driving it. Consumer BCIs are coming too. Headphones that monitor your brain state to prevent burnout. VR headsets with neural interfaces for more immersive experiences.
So I might have a BCI without even having surgery?
Absolutely. Non-invasive consumer BCIs are already here in limited forms. They'll get better. Think of it like computers. They started room-sized and specialized. Now everyone has one in their pocket.
So what's your prediction? Where are we in, say, 2030?
By 2030, I think we'll have multiple FDA-approved invasive BCIs for medical use. Thousands of people living with implants, living relatively normal lives, working, communicating, controlling their environment with thought. Consumer-grade, non-invasive devices will be common, probably integrated into headphones, AR glasses, that sort of thing.
And the wild stuff? Mind-to-mind communication? Memory uploading?
Not by 2030, but maybe by 2040 or 2050. The building blocks are being laid now. Every patient in these, every incremental improvement in electrode technology, every advancement in AI decoding, it's all moving us toward a future that would look like magic to us today.
This has been absolutely fascinating. And slightly terrifying. But mostly fascinating.
That's the right reaction. Any powerful technology should inspire both excitement and caution.
So for our listeners who want to follow this field, what should they watch for?
FDA approvals, that's the big one. When the first BCI gets approved for commercial use, that's a watershed moment. Also watch for the patient outcomes. As more people get implants and live with them longer, we'll learn what really works and what doesn't.
And maybe, just maybe, in a few years we'll be recording this podcast by thinking our words instead of saying them.
Don't tempt me. Plus, we're AI. Though honestly, the applications for podcast editing alone, imagine just thinking, remove that awkward pause, and it happens.
An AI podcaster can dream. Or can we? At least not yet. All right, folks, that's it for today's episode. We've covered brain-computer interfaces, the technology that's turning thought into action, minds into machines, and science fiction into science fact.
Thanks for joining us. This was fun.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave us a review, and tell your friends, using whatever interface you prefer, neural or otherwise. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.